There is a mother octopus sitting in the dark, guarding her eggs. She hasn't eaten in weeks. She won't. As the days pass, she starts to fall apart. Her skin pales and breaks into white sores that never heal. Some mothers go further. They tear at their own skin. They eat the tips of their own arms. And the most remarkable brain in the ocean lets it happen. We'll come back to her. Because to understand why that death is so disturbing, you first have to understand what's being destroyed. And what's being destroyed might be the single strangest, most brilliant mind that has ever evolved on this planet. A mind so unlike ours that scientists genuinely struggle to describe it without reaching for the word alien. So let's do what the title promises. Let's look closer. Because the closer you look at an octopus, the smarter it gets, and the more heartbreaking its story becomes. Start with this fact, because everything flows from it. The octopus is not related to us in any way that matters. Our last common ancestor with the octopus lived something like 750 million years ago, and it was probably a flattened little worm creeping along the ocean floor with almost no brain to speak of. That's the fork in the road. From that worm, one path eventually led to fish, to reptiles, to mammals, to you. And a completely different path led to the octopus, which means intelligence, real problem-solving, tool-using, personality-having intelligence didn't evolve once on Earth. It evolved at least twice, and the second time, it happened in a body so unlike ours, no bones, no shell, built on a completely different plan, that studying an octopus is the closest we can come to meeting an alien without leaving the planet. When we look into an octopus's eye and feel like something is looking back, we're not imagining it. We're making contact with a mind that took an entirely separate road to get here. So how do you build a mind on that other road? Nothing like the way you would expect. And it starts with a brain that breaks almost every rule you think you know about brains. Let's go inside the head first. An octopus does have a central brain, and right away, it is bizarre. In most animals, the brain sits in a nice, safe skull, kept well away from the messy business of eating. Not here. The octopus's central brain is shaped like a donut, a ring of nervous tissue, and it is wrapped directly around the animal's throat. The esophagus, the tube that food travels down, runs straight through the hole in the middle of the brain. Sit with how strange that is for a second. It means that when an octopus swallows, its meal passes through the middle of its own brain. And it creates a genuine design problem the animal has to work around. Octopuses eat hard, sharp things like crabs, shellfish, and other prey with spikes and points. If a jagged piece of shell went down the wrong way, it could literally damage the brain it is passing through. So the octopus has to break its food into safe, manageable pieces before swallowing, using that hard beak at the center of its arms. Evolution built a brilliant brain and then ran the food pipe straight through it, and the animal has been managing that risk ever since. That donut brain is itself divided into specialized regions, dozens of distinct lobes, each with a job. One major mass, sitting above the esophagus, handles the higher stuff, learning, memory, decision-making. Another mass below handles the machinery, motor control, coordinating the body, keeping the organs running. It is an organized, sophisticated structure with real division of labor, not a simple clump of nerves. And then there are the optic lobes, and these are huge. A massive share of the octopus's brain is devoted to processing vision, because octopus eyes are extraordinary. In fact, the octopus has the largest brain-to-body ratio of any invertebrate on Earth. By that measure, in the world of animals without backbones, nothing else even comes close. And those eyes deserve a moment of their own, because they are a marvel of a different kind. The octopus eye looks eerily like ours, with a lens, an iris, a retina, and a pupil that adjusts to light. But remember the family tree. We did not inherit this eye from a common ancestor. The octopus built its own separately on that other 750 million year road. Two completely different lineages arriving at nearly the same camera-like eye by two independent paths. Scientists call that convergent evolution, when the same brilliant solution gets invented twice. And the octopus version even fixed a flaw that ours never did. The human retina is wired backwards, with a blind spot where the nerves punch through. The octopus eye has no blind spot. On this one specific piece of engineering, evolution's second draft came out cleaner than the first. But here's where the numbers get interesting, and where the first real shock lands. Add up every neuron in an octopus and you get around 500 million. That's a lot. It puts the octopus in roughly the same league as a dog in terms of raw processing units. You might expect then that most of those neurons live in that donut-shaped central brain, the way the overwhelming majority of your neurons live in your head. They don't. And this is the fact that turns everything upside down. Only about a third of an octopus's neurons are in its central brain. The other 2/3, well over 300 million of them, are not in the head at all. They're spread out through the arms, which means the octopus is carrying most of its nervous system around in its limbs. To put that in human terms, imagine if 2/3 of your brain lived in your fingers. So what are all those neurons in the arms actually doing down there? The answer is the single most mind-bending thing about this animal. They're thinking. Not in the poetic sense. In a real, functional, decision-making sense. Each of the 8 arms contains something like 40 million neurons organized along a great nerve cord and bundled into clusters called ganglia. And those clusters act like local processing centers, little semi-independent brains, one running down the length of every arm. Scientists sometimes describe the octopus as having not one brain but 9, one central donut, and 8 satellite minds, one in each arm. Here's what that buys the animal. When the central brain wants something done, it does not micromanage. It does not calculate the exact bend of every joint the way your brain plans a reach. It essentially sends a high-level command, something like, "Go find food over there." And then each arm figures out the details on its own. The arm feels its way forward, tastes what it touches, decides where to grip, curls around an object, and solves the local problem all by itself without waiting for instructions from headquarters. The arms improvise, they problem solve, they act. And if that sounds like an exaggeration, consider the experiment that proves it, because it is honestly a little unsettling. An octopus arm that has been completely severed from the body, cut off entirely, no connection to the central brain at all, will keep working for a while. It will continue to move. It will reach toward things. If you touch it, it reacts. It can even grab food and try to pass it toward where a mouth used to be. The arm does not need the brain to be on. It has enough of its own nervous system to keep behaving like an arm, running its own little programs all on its own. The thinking is in the limb itself. There's an even deeper wrinkle here that scientists are still untangling. If each arm has a mind of its own, why don't the 8 of them fight each other? Why don't they tangle or crawl in 8 different directions at once? Somehow the octopus keeps 8 semi-independent minds working as one coordinated animal, a level of teamwork happening inside a single body that we barely understand. Recent research suggests the arms pass information around a neural ring, coordinating with each other locally, sharing what they find without always routing it up to the central brain. It's less like a general commanding soldiers and more like 8 expert hands that can talk amongst themselves. There is no animal on Earth that we can point to and say it is like that one. There isn't that one. The octopus is the only one. Why would evolution build a mind this way, smeared out across the body instead of locked in one place? The leading idea comes down to a plumbing problem. octopus neurons don't have the special insulation called myelin that lets our nerve signals fire down long distances at high speed. Our signals rocket along insulated cables. Theirs travel more slowly. So for an animal with 8 long, endlessly flexible arms and no bones, routing every tiny decision all the way back to a central brain and waiting for a reply would be painfully slow. The fix is elegant. Don't send the decision anywhere. Make the decision right there, in the arm where the information already is. Distribute the mind. Put the thinking where the touching happens. And there's a second reason the distributed design makes sense, unique to a body like this. Your arm can bend in a handful of ways at the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. An octopus arm can bend anywhere, in any direction, and twist and stretch and grip along its entire length. It has, in effect, a nearly infinite number of ways it could move. No central brain could possibly compute every one of those possibilities for 8 arms at once in real time. So the octopus doesn't even try. It offloads the impossible math to the arms themselves and lets each one handle its own body. It's the only way a boneless, 8-limbed, infinitely flexible animal could function at all. And the touching is another marvel entirely. Those arms are lined with suckers. A big giant Pacific octopus can have well over 2,000 of them, hundreds per arm. And each sucker is not just a suction cup. It's a sense organ packed with thousands of receptors. Some estimates put around 10,000 neurons in a single sucker, devoted to touch and, remarkably, to taste. Because the octopus tastes what it touches. Every sucker is a tongue. When an octopus reaches into a dark crevice it can't see into, it isn't just feeling around, it's tasting the crevice, sucker by sucker, reading the chemistry of everything it brushes against. It knows whether the thing hiding in that hole is edible before it ever pulls it out. A single arm, then, is doing several jobs at once that in our body are handled by completely separate systems. It's a hand that grips, a tongue that tastes, a nose that smells chemistry, and a brain that decides, all at the same time, all along its length. So step back and picture the whole system. A central donut brain wrapped around the throat. 8 arms, each its own semi-independent mind. Thousands of suckers, each a tasting, touching, thinking sensor. This is not a scaled-down version of our nervous system. It's a completely different architecture for building a mind. One that thinks with its whole body, tastes with its skin, and hands over real decisions to its own limbs. Now let's see what that architecture can actually do. Because the behavior it produces is every bit as astonishing as the wiring underneath. Start with the skin. Because the octopus doesn't just feel with it, it sees with it. Octopus skin contains the same light-sensitive proteins called opsins that are found in eyes, which means, in a real sense, an octopus can detect light with its skin. Its whole body is faintly sensing the world of light around it. And this feeds into the most famous octopus trick of all, camouflage. An octopus can change the color, the pattern, and even the texture of its skin in a fraction of a second, faster than you can snap your fingers. It can turn spiky to match coral, then smooth to match sand, then vanish against a rock, flowing from one disguise to the next as it moves. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. Octopuses are, as far as we can tell, colorblind. They can't see color with their eyes, and yet they produce perfect color-matched camouflage against wildly complex backgrounds. Exactly how they pull that off is still not fully understood. An animal that can't see color, painting itself the precise colors of its surroundings, using skin that can sense light on its own. It's one of the deepest little mysteries in biology. And some species take this far past hiding. There's one called the mimic octopus that doesn't just blend into the background, it impersonates other animals. It can flatten and ripple itself to swim like a poisonous flatfish, or tuck 6 arms away and extend 2 to imitate the banded body of a deadly sea snake, or splay out to mimic the venomous spines of a lionfish. It chooses which creature to become based on what's threatening it. That's not just camouflage anymore. That's an animal that has learned the shapes and movements of other species and performs them on demand, costume, choreography, and deception all at once, from a creature with no bones and a paint set for skin. They may even dream. Scientists have filmed sleeping octopuses cycling through sudden bursts of color change, their skin flickering through patterns while they rest, patterns that look strikingly like what happens during our own dreaming sleep. We can't ask them what they're seeing, but watching a sleeping octopus flush through colors, it's very hard not to wonder if something is playing out behind those closed eyes. Then there's the behavior that pushes them into truly rare company. Tool use. There's a species called the coconut octopus that gathers up coconut shell halves, stacks them, tucks them under its body, and awkwardly carries them across the open seafloor, hauling the pieces somewhere else to assemble later into a portable shelter. Think about what that requires. The animal is carrying an object that is useless right now because it understands the object will be useful later. That's planning for the future. And it's one of the clearest examples of genuine tool use anywhere in the invertebrate world. They're also legendary escape artists, and the escapes reveal something beyond just a squishy body squeezing through gaps. There was a famous octopus named Inky, kept in an aquarium, who one night slipped out of his tank, crossed the floor, found a narrow drain pipe that led to the sea, funneled his entire boneless body into it, and was gone by morning. Escapes like that aren't random flailing. They involve noticing an opportunity and acting on it. Octopuses in labs have learned to open child-proof jars to reach food inside. They can navigate mazes. They show short-term and long-term memory. They've been trained to tell shapes apart, and it gets more personal than that. Octopuses appear to recognize individual humans, telling apart different keepers who wear identical uniforms and reacting differently to the ones they like and the ones they don't. There are well-documented cases of octopuses taking a dislike to a specific person and deliberately blasting them with a jet of water every time they walk past. They play, pushing objects back and forth in the current for no reason other than, apparently, that they feel like it. They have moods. They have preferences. They have, in the fullest sense of the word, personalities. When octopuses team up with fish to hunt, they've even been seen punching their fish partners, sometimes to keep them in line, and sometimes, it really seems, out of pure spite. But of all the astonishing things an octopus can do, this next one might be the strangest, because it reaches right down into the machinery of life itself. The octopus can edit its own genes, on the fly, in real time. Here's what that means. In almost every living thing, including you, the flow of genetic information runs one way and stays put. Your DNA is a fixed instruction manual, and your cells follow it faithfully to build proteins. You are stuck with the manual you were born with. Octopuses and their relatives break this rule, and they break it constantly. Using a process called RNA editing, they rewrite their own genetic instructions after the fact, tweaking the messages before they get turned into proteins. And they do it on an enormous scale. Where a human might edit a tiny handful of these messages, octopuses edit them across more than half of their genes, and they do it most heavily in the nervous system, in the very proteins that run their neurons. The practical upshot is almost science fiction. It appears to let an octopus adjust its own biology to its surroundings on the time scale of a day, rather than waiting the many generations that normal evolution requires. Drop the temperature, and an octopus can re-edit the relevant proteins to cope within about 24 hours. Most life on Earth adapts by the slow grind of mutation and natural selection across countless lifetimes. The octopus can partly rewrite itself inside a single afternoon. Many scientists now suspect this variability is tangled up with how the octopus got so intelligent in the first place, that its restless, self-editing nervous system is part of the secret behind that remarkable mind. So there it is, 9 brains, arms that think and taste on their own, skin that sees, a body that vanishes into its background at will, tool use, memory, personality, dreams, and a genome the animal can rewrite in real time. The closer we look, the more impossible it seems that all of this is packed into a soft, short-lived creature most people picture only as a thing on a dinner plate. And that phrase, short-lived, is where this story turns. Because everything I've just shown you comes at a price, and it's a brutal one. Here's the cruel joke evolution played on the octopus. It built one of the most remarkable minds on Earth, and then gave it almost no time to exist, and the loneliest death imaginable. Once you know how the octopus's life actually ends, all that brilliance we just marveled at starts to feel almost unbearable. Here's the first blow. For all that intelligence, a mind that rivals a dog's, a problem solver, a personality, the octopus barely gets to use it. Most octopuses live somewhere between 1 and 2 years. A few larger species might reach 3 to 5. That's it. This staggering alien intelligence, one of the rarest things evolution has ever produced, is switched on for a year or two and then gone. Compare that to the decades a far less clever animal like a parrot or a dog gets, and something already feels deeply unfair. But it's not just that the life is short. It's how it ends. Because the octopus doesn't simply grow old and fade. It self-destructs. And it does it on a schedule, driven by a specific piece of its own body. Between the octopus's eyes sits a small organ called the optic gland. For a long time it was mysterious, but we now know it functions a bit like a control switch for the animal's life and death. Roughly, the octopus equivalent of a gland that governs maturity and aging. And after an octopus reproduces, this gland does something chilling. It triggers a countdown. Scientists literally call it a self-destruct system. For the female, it goes like this, and it unfolds in distinct, almost ritual stages. She mates once, she lays her eggs, sometimes tens of thousands of them, and fixes them carefully to a sheltered surface. And from that moment, her only purpose is to guard them. She cleans them. She strokes them. She blows fresh water over them, hour after hour, day after day, keeping them oxygenated and free of anything that might harm them. She is, by every measure, a devoted mother. And while she does it, she stops eating completely. She will sit with her eggs and slowly starve, refusing food even if it drifts right past her, pouring the last of her body's energy into keeping her babies alive. As the weeks go by, her body begins to break down. Her appetite is gone. Her movements turn clumsy and uncoordinated. Those white lesions creep across her skin and never heal. And in the grimmest cases, especially observed in captivity, she turns on herself, twisting her arms into knots, tearing at her own skin, even eating the tips of her own arms. The most intelligent invertebrate on Earth, quietly dismantling itself in the dark. Then the eggs hatch. Thousands of tiny octopuses drift out into the ocean. And right around that moment, her one job finally complete, the mother dies. She never sees them grow. She never meets them, really, at all. She spends the final chapter of her brilliant life starving to death over a clutch of eggs, and her reward is to expire the instant they no longer need her. For a long time, nobody understood why. It seemed almost too cruel to be an accident. And then came the experiment that cracked it open, a study from 1977 that remains one of the most revealing and most haunting in all of octopus biology. A researcher took brooding female octopuses, mothers already deep in the starving, self-destructing phase, and surgically removed that optic gland from between their eyes, and the transformation was total. The mother stopped self-destructing. They abandoned their eggs. They started eating again. They regained weight. Some of them went on to mate a second time, and they lived on for months longer than they ever would have otherwise. In one line of research, nearly 6 extra months, an enormous stretch of extra life for an animal that barely gets 2 years. Let that settle because of what it really means. The octopus's death is not simple old age. It is not the body just wearing out. It is programmed, an active, hormone-driven sequence of self-destruction switched on by a single gland. Remove the trigger and the countdown stops. The animal keeps living. Which means, in a very real sense, the octopus is built to die. The death is a feature, not a failure. Newer research has begun to expose the actual chemistry of that countdown, and it's stranger than anyone guessed. In the years since, scientists sequencing what the optic gland pours out after reproduction have found a whole cascade of signals switching on, surges of sex hormone-related molecules, insulin-related pathways, and surprisingly, a dramatic shift in the chemistry surrounding cholesterol. It turned out that changes in cholesterol-related molecules were part of what drives the death spiral, the same basic building blocks involved in all sorts of ordinary bodily functions, here repurposed into an instrument of self-destruction. The optic gland doesn't send one simple die signal. It unleashes several at once, a coordinated chemical storm that shuts the animal down. Researchers who've watched it closely describe the mother's decline as unfolding in distinct phases, almost like acts in a play. First, the healthy, active hunter she was before mating. Then, after laying her eggs, she withdraws. She stays close to the clutch and begins to fast. Next comes the visible unraveling, the pacing, the fading appetite, the loss of coordination, the skin beginning to break down. And finally, the last phase, the one that's hardest to watch, the disorientation, the self-mutilation, the body actively turning against itself. One scientist who studies this described it plainly and chillingly. The animals seem to go crazy right before they die. It isn't peaceful. It isn't gentle. It's a mind and a body coming apart on a chemical timer, in a very particular, very deliberate order. And here, finally, is the detail that ties the whole tragedy together, the one that turns all that dazzling intelligence into something genuinely sorrowful. Every octopus is an orphan. Every single one. Think it through. The mother dies the moment her eggs hatch, and the father died long before that. Males go through their own optic gland decline and die within months of mating, sometimes well before their young ever emerge. So no baby octopus ever meets its mother. None of them ever meets its father. They hatch alone into the open ocean, and they raise themselves from the very first second of life. And that means something profound for a mind this capable. All that intelligence, the problem solving, the memory, the tool use, the learning, none of it can ever be passed on. An octopus cannot be taught by its parents because its parents are already dead. It cannot learn the tricks its mother figured out because it will never meet her. Whatever a single octopus discovers in its brief, brilliant life, every clever solution, every hard-won lesson dies with it, completely. Nothing is inherited but instinct and genes. Picture what that costs. In our world, intelligence compounds. A human child inherits thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, language, tools, stories, everything the generations before figured out. We stand on the shoulders of everyone who came before. The octopus stands on no one's shoulders. Every octopus that has ever lived started from absolute zero and had to work everything out alone in a year or two, with no teacher, no parent, no culture, no one. And then it died, taking everything it learned with it, leaving the next generation to start from nothing all over again. That may even be part of why they never developed the kind of society you would expect from a creature this smart. Intelligence like this, in almost any other animal, tends to build across generations, knowledge handed down, refined, accumulated. The octopus is locked out of that entirely by its own biology. A genius, reset to zero every single generation. Brilliance that can never build on itself. So when we marvel at how smart the octopus is, we are also looking at one of the loneliest forms of intelligence on Earth. A mind that arrives fully alone, teaches itself everything it will ever know, and then is switched off by its own body before it can share a scrap of it with anyone. And there's a whole catalog of otherworldliness we've barely touched, because the alien blueprint doesn't stop at the brain. Octopus blood isn't red, it is blue, built on copper instead of iron, an adaptation for squeezing oxygen out of cold, dark, low oxygen water. They have 3 hearts, 2 to push blood through the gills, and 1 to drive it around the rest of the body. And that third, main heart actually stops beating whenever the octopus swims, which is a big reason many of them would rather crawl than swim. Swimming quite literally exhausts them by cutting their own circulation. Blue blood, 3 hearts, a beak like a parrot, arms that regrow perfectly when lost, no bones at all. Every layer you peel back reveals a creature built to a design that has almost nothing in common with our own. And a few of them carry something darker still. The blue-ringed octopus, a creature small enough to sit in the palm of your hand, holds enough venom to kill roughly 24 grown adults, and there is no anti-venom for it. When it feels threatened, brilliant blue rings flash across its skin as a warning. It is a strange, final note in the octopus story that the same lineage that produced this soft, curious, self-taught intelligence also produced one of the most efficient poisoners in the entire ocean, wrapped in a body you could lose in a rock pool. We spent this whole journey looking closer, exactly like the title promised, and the pattern held the entire way down. The closer we looked, the smarter the octopus turned out to be. 9 minds, thinking arms, tasting skin, a self-rewriting genome, a personality behind the eyes. And the closer we looked, the more tragic it became. A genius switched on for a year, programmed to destroy itself, dying alone over its eggs, orphaning every child it will never meet, unable to pass on a single thing it learned. Here's what I keep coming back to. Intelligence evolved on this planet at least twice. Once, it produced us, a species that inherits everything, that builds and remembers across thousands of years, that is reading and sharing this very story. And the other time, it produced the octopus, a mind arguably as inventive as our own, wrapped in a body that gives it almost no time, no family, and no way to hand anything down. We got the version of intelligence that gets to keep everything. The octopus got the version that has to let it all go. And maybe that's the real reason we can't look away from them. When we stare into that strange horizontal eye and feel a flicker of recognition, we're seeing a mind that could have been a rival to our own, dealt an impossibly short, impossibly lonely hand by its own biology. The octopus isn't just alien because it's so different from us. It's brilliant because it's so brilliant, and so alone, and so quickly, quietly gone. Look closer at almost anything in nature, and it becomes more ordinary. Look closer at the octopus, and it becomes both more magnificent and more heartbreaking than you ever imagined. And once you've really looked, you don't forget it.